Mhm.
So hello, everybody, and welcome to another Open 2020 webinar. Thank you very much for joining us. We're very excited to have here today Grace, who's going to talk to us about Holochain. But just a little bit of background first. So Open 2020 is running this series of webinars in the lead up to a larger event on the 11th and 12th of June. And the webinars have basically been looking at some of the existing tools and technologies that exist and that are out there, which could help us come together to form a larger connected commons building initiative. So we know that there are lots of small groups and pockets of organizations all around the world that are working on similar new economy, solidarity economy, and collaborative projects. We're really keen to find ways to network them all together into a larger collaborative whole in order that they can be more effective together. So obviously, one of the key tools that promises to help in that direction is Holochain. And what we're really interested in exploring here is about the latest developments and we're actually going to hopefully see some demonstration of some of the apps, the Holochain apps that have been built and are working on Holochain. As we move forwards towards the larger event, which will look at how we can enable small groups to form, exchange ideas, define shared purposes, and to collaborate effectively and trade within a global network of like-minded commons building initiatives. And I see Holochain as being a key part of that, really, because in previous open co-op conferences, we have promoted platform co-ops, which are, we consider, a blueprint for a kind of new organization, which is collectively owned and democratically governed. But this year, we're focusing much more in on groups and group work and how to enable these small groups. And what has become increasingly clear through all of these webinars and conversations is that actually platforms are not necessarily the answer to that question. Protocols are instead. And by protocols, I mean shared ways of making information interoperable between different platforms. So it doesn't matter, for example, if you were using WhatsApp or Telegram or Riot or some other chat-based platform, we should be able to share those conversations between different platforms in order to all benefit from the overlaps and the synergies within those conversations. And I'm hoping very much that that is where we will get to with Holochain. So without further ado, I shall pass you over to Grace for a quick introduction and presentation on Holochain.
Yeah, hi, so I'm Grace. I am a community member in Holochain. I've been working with Holochain for a while, and I'm going to give you a quick overview of what Holochain is, how it works, and then these two guys who will also say hello will give you the actual demo of some of the stuff they've been building. I'm not a developer, I'm just someone who talks. So let me share my slides with you, and then after I share my slides and tell you a little about Holochain. And for some of you, this is going to be really basic because I have seen you in the Holochain forum, so hopefully you know this stuff, but in any case. So this is, I hope this is the right introduction because I haven't edited one. Let me just make sure this is the right one. Sorry.
No problem. While you're doing that, Grace, I'll just outline the kind of structure for this webinar. So we're going to run for an hour and a half. We've had the intro, we're going to get the presentation, then we will have the demo, and then we'll move into some discussion. And depending on time, we might use the breakout rooms to then move into separate groups and discuss different ideas. So we have a shared Google Doc, which we're using, and the ideas for the questions for those breakout rooms are in that Google Doc, which I've shared in the chat. So if during the presentations you have questions or you've got notes that you want to make, please make them in that document there rather than using the Zoom chat. And that way they will benefit everybody else after the event. But also, as you're looking through the questions for the possible breakout rooms, you could perhaps follow the orange instructions there by renaming yourself within Zoom using the blue More button, and then adding a number in front of your name to indicate which breakout room you would like to end up in. Back over to Grace.
Well, what's really exciting to tell you is that I do not have access anymore to somehow to the presentation I had prepared, but this one is close enough, and that's the one we're going to go with. So, yeah, that was a surprise. Somehow I got blocked access. I have my access to my thing that I had access to last week. It's now gone. So let me just, I do have this one that is an introduction to Holochain. It is the generic one, not the one that I had customized for you. So I'm not talking about something crazy here, but it is the generic one rather than the one that's customized for this group. So great. So sharing that. Okay. Awesome. So Holochain. Now, Holochain, a lot of those of you who have familiarity with blockchains, you know that the idea behind Bitcoin was to create a solution for digital cash. And that is not the idea behind Holochain. The idea of Holochain is to create a solution for what we call distributed applications. How can we build distributed applications? And the distributed applications, and it's a very different structure. So when you start thinking about things like what are the tokens, that's not a relevant question, because we're not trying to solve the problem of digital cash. The problem that we're trying to solve is, how do I build distributed apps? And so the architecture of the Holochain is very different. And I'm just going to go over quickly what this difference of the different architecture is. And so on the right, we have the distributed ledger technology, the blockchain architecture. And that is one global computer, which has a state that you have to, when you're programming and you're thinking about it, most of the programmers in this world already are accustomed to a situation in which there is a database and you can ask questions of the database. And this is one of our biggest privacy problems, isn't it? Because people collect our information, a company or the UN or our governments, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, you know what else I could ask this database? I could ask them this also, and I could run this on it. So Holochain doesn't do that. It's not one global database with one global state. So if you're programming in Holochain, you have to think up front, what am I going to need the global state of? How often, let's say I wanted to run a voting application, I might have to poll people every now and again. Or if I were running an application where there is money, right? There has to be some way that we transact in money with one another and we know each other's state or the state of each other's bank accounts, without having one big centralized server. Or maybe I create a service that is called the bank, and the bank goes around, and when people use money, it goes into a bank. That is a centralized bank, if I want to create a centralized service. So when we're thinking about Holochain, when you're thinking about programming on this thing, it is an agent-centric orientation, which means there isn't some global database that you could save stuff onto and later remember what you wanted to do with it. Instead, what we have is a distributed hash table. And you can see in this distributed hash table, there are little people. Those are the agents. When I say agent-centric, those are agents. That's me, you, a computer, whatever it is. And this is much more similar to how natural systems work. So when we think about biological systems, natural systems, there isn't one state of how all humans are feeling right now, or we're all different agents. Or if you think about language, how do we speak to each other? We all speak a certain language. It happens to be English in this room. And Oliver's language of English is not the same as my language of English. We have a different database and a different vocabulary. And even when we see things like DLT and DHT here, some people will be like, what the heck is a DLT? And some people are like, oh, I know what that is. That's distributed ledger technology and distributed hash table. And so our databases are separately different, but they're good enough that we can speak to each other. So that's how Holochain is working. And you can see that there's two different apps here. And that would be like if I had a device, for example, my phone is my device. If I were running Twitter here and I was running, YouTube here, the databases for YouTube and Twitter are not the same ones, but they might have this little cube in the middle, like you said, like a little API, we call an API. So if I press share my video to Twitter, YouTube knows how to do that so that they can speak to each other across these different hash tables according to the design of the developer. And so this also makes the system very scalable. One of the problems that we have with blockchain is that it's not very scalable because there's one big world computer, and the way in which it's distributed is that it's saved in multiple places. And it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and harder to store in any place, and harder to validate, because validation has to have 50% of the nodes validating it. But here with Holochain, you've got these separate databases, and it creates a much more scalable solution. The databases themselves are also distributed, and I'll talk about that as well. So one of the things that we see with the, this is going to give you a little bit of a close-up into an agent, right? So here we have the DHT, like we saw before. There's this DHT with agents on it. And the agents on the DHT are each a person or a node. And then they have this thing called the source chain. This is what we call a source chain. And so I'll explain to you how this works. So the idea of the source chain, instead of there being one database which is stored in one place, each of us stores a part of it. In blockchain world, we call that shard, or I guess generally in compute world, we call that a shard. And so there's all these different shards of the whole thing, and each person holds a shard. And this is how a shard would look. So, so first of all, there's my private source chain. And this is a record of what I've done or what I'm doing on this hash table. And let's say, again, I install an app. Let's say it's a mutual credit app that Guillaume is going to show us soon. The first thing that gets installed is this DNA. And the DNA says, I am the app that, the mutual credit app. I am the mutual credit app. And again, when we talk about language, we could say that's English. So if I say, do you speak English? And you say no, well, we can't talk. And then, so the DNA is like that. So this DNA saying, I am the mutual credit app, will talk to that DNA, say, hey, I'm the mutual credit app. And that DNA will say, what? I'm not. And then they can't speak. So that's the first level of security, so that you can't, that locks you out of having a transaction that's illegal. You need to be running the same code. But the other way of looking at that would be like dogs. A dog sniffs the other dog's butt. It knows it's a dog. It knows there's certain transactions that can be done with that, and it's not cat. It can't do those particular transactions with cat. Okay, so that's why we call it DNA. It's like if you have the same DNA, there's certain interactions that are appropriate. So that's the DNA. After that, when you install it, it creates header 0, that's where this DNA is. And then the first header is your public key. And then that's how you identify yourself. Do you speak English? Yes. My name is Grace. That's your user ID. Of course, it's some big long thing that sounds a lot, lots of numbers, and it's a private key, a public key. And your private key is private. And another unique and important thing about Holochain is that your public key can only be held by you. This is one of the things that is encoded in the user license, and we've also created a open source license, what's it called? Cryptographic Autonomy License, which is a new form of open source license, which we recommend to all blockchains, which basically means it's illegal for the application developer to hold someone's keys. Because right now, one of the great things about having your keys is that you can claim you said something and nobody else could claim you said something. So if you think about my tweet, right? If I tweet something today, if I tweeted it, I tweeted it because it came from my Twitter account. If Twitter decides that I shouldn't have said that, they could erase it. No, she never said that. Twitter could claim I had never said that because Twitter holds my private keys in this case. And in this case of your own source chain, that can never happen. They might not be willing to publish it on, because whatever, it's profane or whatever, there might be some rule in the app, but it could never be unclaimed that you had said that. Nobody could take that off of your source chain. And your source chain is done in such a way that it can be confirmed. So you've got header 0, header 2, header 1, header 2, obviously in an order. And each header contains a hash of the previous header, so that if somebody tampered with that chain, it would be obvious that that had been tampered with. And so that's another level of ensuring that this is an immutable record. So I have a chain, I have a DNA that if somebody tampered with it, I wouldn't be able to recognize it, or there'd be something wrong. And I have a chain of actions that if I tamper with the order, my colleagues will be able to understand that. So it's immutable, but if you think about immutable doesn't mean I need to have announced it to everybody. I just need to announce it to enough people or enough nodes so that it would be immutable. So this is a situation. Here's Bob's node, and Bob has 3 apps on here, and each one of the apps has a different hash table, as we showed before. So maybe one of this is a chat app, and one is the mutual credit app, and one is his video app, or whatever it is. And each one of these apps maintains their own hash table, and inside of each of these apps, Bob has his own source code, source chain, and he's holding some of his neighbor's source chains. So Bob is obviously B, he's holding A, C, D, E, F, and G, so those are his neighbors' shards. And then this way, every time that Bob publishes something that he's done, then a few of his neighbors are storing it. What's a few? It depends on the programmer. So as you program your app, you might say, we need 10 copies to be sure of it, or we need 100 copies, or everybody has to have it. That really depends on the level of security that you need in your app. And it also might depend on the level of security that's designed in other ways. So for example, in HoloFuel, the number is 20. And in order to be a host, you need to guarantee 90% uptime. And so that gives you 6 sigma security. 20 people storing it, and all of those 20 people have guaranteed 90% uptime. So that's a calculation you can do as an app developer of what you know, how you want to do that. There's so many bloops in Zoom that they're like new kinds of bloops, new sounds, they upgraded, and I'm like, oh, another bloop. So that's the basic idea behind Holochain. And now part of this, what's really wonderful about this when we're talking about peer-to-peer is, as you've noticed, we're all sharing each other's data. So we don't need Amazon. We don't need AWS. We don't need Google to store our data. We're all storing each other's data. And that makes it truly peer-to-peer as far as the storage. It's truly peer-to-peer because when we're going to show you that with the app, but when one app speaks to the other app, I don't need to go to a central server for anything. My DNA gives me a handshake that assures me that this person is not a malicious node and that they are running the same code that I am. And it has a very different attitude towards security, which is we can report on one another if somebody does something suspicious. So if I do an interaction with you, I'm confirming that we're okay together. And if something's suspicious about you, I can report that to the rest of the nodes. I can make a report on that. We call it a warrant. And so it's more like an immune system, so that you can issue warrants against malicious nodes or anybody that's done anything that doesn't fit with the DNA or has tampered with their hash table. And in that way, instead of trying to write code that eliminates any possibility for corruption, we have a warrant system, more of an immune system where people can report on each other. So again, much more like natural systems, more like an immune system than like, okay, we're going to try and think of every single possible attack vector and code against it. I think that's what I have for this presentation, because let me just take a look. But yeah, that's what I have for this presentation. The one other thing that I would say that I do have that you might want to note is, and if you've heard of Holochain, one of the other things that you may have heard about, which I'm also going to share, is these Holo ports. So on the one hand, we can host all of each other's data, but if you happen to be creating something that is very heavy, needs a lot of data, you might want to have some storage units. The storage units, they're small. I'll show you one in a second. And anybody could just buy one and put them in their home. So again, you could create a fully self-hosted community with these hosting nodes. Some communities, in peer-to-peer communities, are talking about using those as a source of income for people, because instead of AWS, you're having people in your community be the hosts and host each other's computing power. The hosts do two things. Like I said, they could host you if you have if you need a lot more computing power or a lot more storage power. And the other thing they do that is distinct from blockchain, that is important, is that they allow you to connect through your browser. So these Holoports contain the software also that will translate my browser to a Holochain application, so that we're not forcing all the users in the world to use Holochain in order to use a Holochain app. The Holochain apps will be browser supported, and then if you have a port, it will be able to translate. And that source chain that I showed you, there's nowhere safe to store it on your computer. Your browser is not a safe storage place. So these Holoports will also store that source chain for people who don't have the Holochain app. So you don't need them if everybody's running the Holochain OS, we call a Holochain operating system. But if you have some users that are just accessing from a browser, you can add these ports to your system. And then you don't need, like, again, and if you're thinking about blockchain, oh, I got to have MetaMask and I got to have some Ethereum in my MetaMask and I have to have this and I have to have that. You don't have to have that. It's all designed so you can run it from a browser, because we know that, you know, not everybody is going to convert themselves over tomorrow to using Holochain. So, yeah.
Thanks, Grace. That's excellent. I mean, yeah, Holochain is obviously a highly complex subject, and I'm sure that that has probably thrown up as many questions as answers. But rather than jump into the questions now, maybe we'll just move forward with the demo and then see how much time we have left.
Here's my port, just so you can see. This is how big a Holoport is. It's very home friendly. Yeah.
It's not plugged in.
I just unplugged it so I could show it to you guys. I do have a, anyway, all right, yeah.
Cool. No, thanks, Grace. It's really, really good to see. So, Gwilym, are we kind of good to go?
Yeah, I think we are.
Over to you, my friend.
Can I add something to Grace before going to demo? Hello, everybody. My name is Hedayat, another community member of Holochain. I would like to add a few points to the Grace that make a little bit clear before going to demo. If most of the guys currently are coming from the blockchain, the first question always they are answering, is there any blockchain inside, or DHT, all the data are merged to the blockchain, to the such sort of the meaning of a block? What is the source chain? Generally, I would like to add, first of all, this important point. We have a DHT and a source chain. Source chain is gonna be private on your phone. DHT is gonna be just between the member. Grace mentioned this one. It means for the first time, we are going to have a real privacy, private data and public data. The topic that we are afraid of, the AI, you know, AI is gonna eat us. No, in the future, we are gonna use the benefit of AI, but we are going to provide the data, not the AI can access to everything. It means it is the topic, and here we bring the agent-centric, which is really important. So, source chain is the chain of data on your local. In the public, DHT, distributed hash table, there is no blockchain. There is no series of data, actually. It is a content addressable. How the things are working, at the end of the day, Holochain is eventual consistency. The model of a database, it is conflict-free replicated data type. It means all the events are gonna be merged to create a one consistency of the reality or of the data. It is really important. For the technical guys, I would like to say that maybe the combination of the torrent and Git can help you to understand Holochain, how the Holochain actually is working. So CRDT was the important point, and agent-centric I would like to mention before going to demo. Thank you.
Makes sense. No, thank you.
Okay, so hi everyone. I'm Guillem, another community member of Holochain. I'm going to very briefly demo two applications we have prepared today. So the first one, this is the one that we are going to be focusing more. It's a proof of concept of a mutual credit application. So I imagine a lot of you are familiar with mutual credit systems, mutual credit accounting, and so on. Just before starting, just notice that this is not the Holochain's currency, Holochain's built-in money system, nothing like that. This is one of many example of games that you can build on top of Holochain. So we have done some design choices, and we have done some things in a way that work for the use case we are working on, but you can think of any set of rules, any set of social games, as I like to call them, that you could invite communities to play, basically. So, okay, focusing a little bit on this proof of concept, mutual credit accounting. So this is a proof of concept targeting Let's style currencies. So very small communities that want to exchange with one another with some level of trust, and through a mutual credit accounting system. So just very briefly, this proof of concept has these sections right here. So first you have your balance, that's plus 38 credits at the moment from this user. You can see my user is Alice, and you can also see the transaction history. So this is all the transactions that my user has made, and if you sum every transaction up, it's going to give you the 38 credits. So this is my balance. Now we are going to see the offers. Okay, so here we can see a list of offers that members in our community are going to be offering us some credit, and we are going to be offering them some other credit. And here we get to the interesting pattern we think about this proof of concept. So this offer mechanism is targeted to do private transactions without doing any kind of global consensus. So let's see how the mechanism is going. Let me go to the creditor list first, and just so we can see the whole life cycle of an offer, right? So here we have the creditor list, which is the list of all the people I can transact with in my community. And I can just offer some credits. Okay, so let's say I'm going to offer 4 credits to Bob. Okay, so now the transaction, the offer is created. We can see here in my side, and in Bob's side, we can see that this is Bob's username. Now we can go and see that there is this incoming offer from Alice. And here, actually, the first important point arises, which is all the transactions, because we designed, so all the transactions are private. So you basically need to consent to show your transaction history to your counterparty before actually being able to transact. If the transactions are private, the only way that one agent can verify that another has not tampered with anything is that both agents actually scan all the transaction history, and validate, yep, this agent is valid. I want to do a transaction with him. He hasn't tampered with the data, so let's go. So here I'm going to consent, and now it's fetching the transaction history from my counterparty. And now I can see, okay, so Alice's balance is plus 38 credits. Transaction history is valid, and I can execute. Okay, so right now I'm going to execute the offer. And notice that this is what we are going to show in a moment, but this is fully peer-to-peer. So there is no going to a central server or a big blockchain and saying, hey, I announced this transaction, process it. No, this is fully peer-to-peer. We are only sending messages with one another and then attaching a proof of the transaction to the DHT, global DHT. So here we can see the balance. The balance has shifted by 4. We can see here there is the transaction we just did. And you can imagine that with a small community, a lot of offers, a lot of transactions are going on currently. And as this is peer-to-peer, you don't really have any transaction per second limit or anything like that, because you're not asking a big blockchain or a central node to process all the transactions everyone is doing. This is peer-to-peer, so Alice and Bob can do as many transactions as Alice and Bob's computer are able to process, right? So this is fully peer-to-peer in that regard, and this is one of the major scalable advantages of Holochain. So if you notice, Bob's balance is minus 34 now, and then Alice's balance is now plus 34, and this guarantees that the mutual credit accounting maintains its rules, right? So in mutual credit accounting, the sum of all the agents' accounts has to be 0, because everyone starts at 0, and it's not an scarce token, it's not fiat, so all the accounts have to sum up to 0, and then you can actually design a lot of different rules for who gets to create the credits and what are the rules regarding all those interactions. Just very briefly, this proof of concept is designed, you can see the membrane section here, you may be wondering what's up with that. This proof of concept is designed with a small community membrane in mind. In Holochain, we refer as the membrane as who is allowed to enter the network. So in Holochain, you can do decentralized, permissioned, and private networks. You can design the social rules as however you want. And in this case, this membrane, I'm not going to show you, but just to give you an example of what we can do. This membrane only allows friends of friends to join the network. So the network is not actually open, but you need to be vouched in by some people already inside the network, because you are assuming that inside the network there is some level of trust. We could have done it a different way, but these design choices we made were for this little community mutual credit and accounting system. So this is what we went with. Okay, right now I'm going to shift to very briefly explain you a little bit of what has just happened from the technical perspective. So this is a representation very briefly of the DHT inside the mutual credit proof of concept. And we are going to see Alice and Bob transacting with one another. Just so you have an idea of what is happening very, very, very briefly on the background. So let's say that Alice is this agent on the left, Bob is this agent on the right. They both have their source chain. They both have a header, which is like the attestation, hey, I committed and I did this entry, and everyone can see. So what happens first is that Bob sends an offer to Alice, just peer-to-peer messaging, no going anywhere else, just peer-to-peer messaging. And then if Alice consents, it gets the balance, so it scans the source chain, And getting the balance also checks with the global attestation that Alice has had to make into the DHT to prove that the transaction did take place, and then verifies that the both coincide, are in coherence. Then it sends an accept offer. Remember, this is all peer-to-peer messaging. And then they both commit the attestation for this new transaction into the DHT. Right?
Sorry,
so,
can
yeah.
you just define the attestation?
Right. Okay. So the attestation is nothing inherent in Holochain. It's just part of our mechanism design. And in this case, it's attesting that Alice and Bob did this transaction with this transaction ID. So that then future agents can go and say, yep, your source chain is valid because I'm seeing the attestations you put in the DHT. And I can say, oh, yeah, the attestations you put on the DHT are coincide with the source chain you are showing me. Otherwise, we could be thinking about what if a bad agent tries to hack their source chain and tries to present you with a transaction history that is not valid. So that's the security game we implemented in this particular design. But this is not to say that all the applications in Holochain have attestations at all. This is just this current design.
Well, I would say that I would say that actually in some ways we do use the terminology a lot for attestation. So one of the things about Holochain is that we don't try to impose global truth. So we don't say that there's one truth. All there are is attestations, which is a more accurate representation of the world. Whatever I'm saying isn't the truth, or even saying that the temperature in my city is 20 degrees isn't necessarily the truth. It's just this thermometer in this location at this time said it was 20 degrees. So I would say that in some ways, the concept of attestations is a fairly basic building block of Holochain, that each data point, we call it an attestation rather than calling it a true data point. And the particular implementation that Guillem is talking about says we're using attestations to validate one another to make sure that this is considered true for the purpose of this chain. So yes, in some way, attestation is a word that we use as a building block in Holochain.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, would you please go back that I can add another thing?
Okay.
Yeah, actually, as you can see, there is no global chain in a DHT. Any user has its own source chain. How Holochain track the activity of a user and trying to stop any bad player by using header? Maybe you are gonna ask, what is header? Actually, it is how the things working in Holochain. If you do any activity as a user inside your application, adding entry, editing the data, or anything for any activity, it's supposed to add a new entry or new block. Maybe you are coming from a blockchain to your source chain, which is local. But the header of your activity automatically published to DHT. It means always, if you implement any application, when you commit anything to your local source chain, the header of activity goes to DHT. It is the fact. It is the subconscious of Holochain. So how we are validating a transaction here? When Alice create a actually offer a transaction, header is a basic automatic part of the entry. It goes to the DHT automatically. The direct message send the transaction to Bob, and then there is nothing about the attestation. Bob received directly, and then attestation is the customized data entry we created. It is nothing about the core. It is just entry. So if you would like to create like a database, any kind of table, any kind of data, customized data, you can design. I just wanted to mention that header is the fact in terms of the core of the holochain. But the rest, it is the custom process, it is the custom data type, and custom business rule. That's it.
Okay.
Can I make a simple question? Very simple. I agree with the philosophy about relative truth, but I would like to understand, if I send to you, Grace, $15, who knows that I've sent you $15 and not 10 or nothing? This I would like.
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you.
So there, again, it depends how the program is programmed, but first of all, who needs to know, right? So in reality, if you hand me $10 bills, there's only two people who know about it. You and me know that you gave me $10. And because we know it's a valid $10, that's nobody else's business also. So the design of the system is like that. Now, what they might know, depending on how the system is designed. Now, when I tell, like I was showing you that in order to do the DHT, there's all these shards of my activity that my neighbors know about. What my neighbors for sure know about is that that is the header. So they might know that I did create a transaction, but they might not know it was $10 with you. But they do know that it was a transaction. So they will be able to validate my source chain didn't skip an action. So if the system is designed to keep it secret how much money we did, they might know you and I transacted, but not how much money. They might not know it was you and me who transacted. It just depends on the system design, but for sure they will know something happened so that I can't fake my source chain and skip headers. So it really depends on your system design and how you decided to store, what data it decided to store. With money, we do recommend that people, that those transactions are stored. And again, with the HoloFuel, for example, it's got to be at least 20 people have a record of the actual transaction, and there also is a central server where all monetary transactions in HoloFuel are saved. That's for compliance requirements. So we do recommend, if you're using money things, we recommend that you comply with the law, but you can program whatever you wanted.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, very briefly, because I think a lot of people are going to have questions and are going to be dying to dive into the breakout rooms if we have those. Very briefly, I'm just going to show you the second application we wanted to share with you, and that's the wiki. So this is a decentralized wiki that people of ICE have built for Holochain. Everything is open source, so you can go check their code and tamper with it, tinker, do whatever you want. So just to show you that this application does not have any currency, it doesn't necessarily have you pay for gas, anything like that. Not necessarily, sorry, it doesn't ask you for any kind of gas. So just to say that you can build conventional applications with Holochain and they run peer-to-peer without any kind of cost more than your devices consuming energy, right? And this you can build with whatever kind of front end you want. You can build normal patterns like Wiki, which is a very appropriate case for these kinds of collaborative social games, right? And you can see here that you can create pages, you can edit also your pages, and this particular wiki also has some role management. So just to, I'm going to step my demo now, just to show you that you can build a wide range of different social games on top of Holochain, because Holochain is not an online platform, it's not the Holochain, it's a framework from which you can build many things on top.
Brilliant. Thank you, Guillem. It's awesome to see, and I think you're right. There's going to be loads of questions, but we'll aim to head into the breakout rooms in 5 or 10 minutes. So if people want to raise their hand now in Zoom to ask some general questions, which might be of interest to everybody, we can do that now, whilst everybody is potentially renaming themselves with a number in front of their name. in order to determine which breakout room they would like to go into in 5 minutes. So does anybody have a specific question for
There are a
Guillermo?
couple on the doc. Look at the doc as well.
Okay, great. Well, let's go straight to those. John Waters, far away. Are you there, John? Not sure, we can't hear you, but I'll ask his question. Are we likely to see, oh, here he is.
My monitor to unmute.
Very good.
The question is basically what I've written there, which is, are we likely to see a Holochain virtual appliance soon, or is there any current alternative to either buying a Holoport or installing the Nixos development environment?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have a timeline for that, so we can't actually say something about that. So I would say right now there isn't a timeline, and I would, yeah, I don't know. Do you know something different, Guillaume?
So right now, what you can do, that's the most basic thing to get the Holochain node running on your computer, is download Holoscape, which is the sandbox container I just showed you, and I can send you the link. And this works on Linux and on Mac, and it's not a developer tool, it's just a proof of concept so that users can see what it would be like to have Holochain running on their local devices. And you should be able to set it up in like 10 minutes of your time if you don't run into many issues.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from anyone?
Maybe I have a question about security, because I remember maybe a famous article by Buttering about the trilemma of the blockchain. You can have two things, not three. It's about security, scalability, and decentralization. Here I see good decentralization, maybe good scalability, because probably you can run many transactions per second, much more than the blockchain. But what about security? Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, what you probably don't have great of is you don't have great privacy within a membrane. So within your DNA, the privacy is more difficult to maintain. But security, we think it's more secure than a blockchain. And what Vitalik said is true for blockchains. This is not a blockchain. It's a distributed hash table. It's a different architecture. So it's very secure. For example, there's no consensus. So we're not susceptible to any of the consensus attacks that any blockchain would be susceptible. We're not susceptible to 51% or Sybil attacks or any of that because it's not based on consensus. So of course it's code. So it's like any code, it will have bugs. But beyond that, it's much less susceptible. If you have any specific, I actually just wrote a white paper on that. But it's actually, you know, Finney attacks, all the things, it's actually less susceptible than a blockchain because the architecture is fundamentally different. But as I said, we do use this warrant system where attacks can be identified by anyone. So if you're on the chain and you're using an app and you can identify some suspicious behavior and report it back, we have a much faster way also of creating our security database than any blockchain would have.
Thank you.
Should we have just one or two more questions? Anybody got a question for any of the presenters that they think I'd like to ask now? If not, we can head to the breakout rooms.
See a couple in the document, which is about the pricing of the Holoport devices. So there's 3 of them, and you can find that at holo.host. And the pricing, as far as that goes, there's a I think the Nano is around $100 version, a $500, and 1,000 version. So there are 3 different versions.
If we order that, how much time we need to receive the all report?
I have absolutely no clue.
Hmm.
The nanos haven't been sent out yet, but probably depends mostly on your jurisdiction. There have been some, some jurisdictions have more issues with customs, so we try to work with you so that you're not going to get screwed. And we know what they all are now.
Hmm.
And I see Hidayat has probably corrected me on something. Oh, what's the number of the, yeah, I don't know. There's all these different breakout rooms. I don't know which breakout room we're all supposed to go to. There's only 3 of us presenters.
That's okay. We will.
You'll assign us
We
something?
will assign you. Yeah, don't worry.
Yeah.
There's another
Okay.
question there, Grace, about.
But also, Carolyn is also one of our holonauts, so you can also assign her to questions. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. We will do. Yeah, there's a question there. I don't know if that's been answered. You mentioned the data is content addressable. Are you using a protocol like named data networking to search for or access data?
Oh, okay. So what if I'm interested in too many of the breakouts? You should then join the Holo forum, the Holochain forum, where you can get really involved in the community. That's what you should do if you have many interests. So as far as the addressing, we use a round robin DHT thing. We're using distributed hash tables. It's an addressing system that is based on a gossip network. Maybe one of the guys wants to go in deeper to that, but basically the way that it works is that there's gossip between the nodes, and that's how the addressing works. It works more like Tor or BitTorrent, those kinds of things, which is our gossip networks. And as you create an app, you can create different kinds of links and references. So anchors, we call them anchors and links, that help you within a particular app have specific ways of addressing things faster as you design your app. But the addressing inside the DHT is, it's a distributed hash table. Like I said, it's a gossip-based network. So I don't know if we want to go deeper in this breakout session. I would say join Hidayat or DM if you want more details on the really technical nitty-gritty of that.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So yeah, let's head towards our breakout rooms. For those of you who haven't renamed yourself the number, I think it's most people now. We still see some without. Simon will also allocate you to one of the groups numbered between 1 and 8 there in the shared doc. And if other people want to actually record their breakout room sessions, if they want to request recording abilities from the host, I think Simon can give you the ability to record so that then we can actually capture them all.
I would say 1 and 2 are pretty similar. So yeah.
1 is really getting right back to the basics. So that's a kind of introductory session.
Okay, cool.
And then, yeah, 7 is going to focus on the actual kind of mutual credit specifics, which is, I know, a very popular topic. So I see quite a few people heading that way. How are we doing, Simon? Do you think we're good?
Yeah, Jacob and Moritz and Martin are also community members, so they can also support.
But we can just, I'll start the breakout rooms, and then we can just, people can say in this room where they want to go, and we can, okay. You ready to open the rooms?
Yeah, thanks, Simon. So we'll let these run for about 15 minutes, and hopefully, if you, it would be good if somebody from each breakout room could try and take some notes in the document, and possibly be prepared to give a quick summary as you get back, just so that others can understand what has happened. And please be very brief with your introductions as you jump into your breakout room. Just say hello and who you are and where you are, and hand over to the next person, nominate another person to speak, so that we can just do a quick round of hellos and introductions and then get straight into the good bit of the discussion.
Okay.
Thanks, Simon. just stop it. Hi, Rainer.
Hello.
I see you've answered where you are already by just saying you're in Munich in your name. Very
Yes,
efficient.
I've set it up that way. Lots other talks these days.
So I see David and Mary and Jose and Harriet too. So we've probably heard enough from me. I will hand you straight over, to Jose to tell us where you are.
Excuse me, before starting, I think I was supposed to select number 7 for the community. Can you reassign me again? Or I should leave back and ask, yeah?
I think so, yeah. Although I was kind of hoping you might answer our questions.
Okay, yes, yeah, if there is a question I can answer, that's great, yeah.
Let's see. I've certainly got a question that I think you can answer, but let's run around with the quick intros. Jose.
Yeah, I'm Jose. I am talking from Portugal, from a little village. Now I have studied maths, and now I am entering a bit more in what is the possibilities of IT at this time that it seems the only direction. And yeah, I'm here to learn more and to see how I can use this technology in a rural area and what is the potential to really go on with that.
If you nominate somebody else to go next.
Yeah, Rainer, it can go.
Okay. So Rainer from Munich. I'm doing education for sustainable development. I'm a low-level Linux user, and I am watching Holochain since they started. I was looking for a kind of fair coin thing for a distributed I'm lacking sometimes English words, money system for education. So that was an idea to connect that with bus rides or something like this that people can earn for those. Yeah, I've won Holoport as well, and I'm waiting to take a deeper dive as a user, not a developer. So, but I'm interested in putting up services. So, yeah. Next one would be Mary.
You are muted, Mary. Would you please unmute?
Maybe we jump to David while Mary. Oh, here she is. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I forgot. And I think I have to come close before you can hear me at all.
Yeah, you're quite quiet.
I'm not trying to gobble you up. I was just saying, I'm not really very techy. I have to learn things. I sort of do admin, so I don't write code. So, but I can use something if it's given to me. And I've been very nervous about any of this this new techie thing because I just the impression I got about Bitcoin is that it's a sort of evil thing used for crime and is very dangerous, and so anything that sounds a bit like Bitcoin I've been a bit suspicious of. So I'm slightly encouraged by what I was able to take in of the presentation. About the Holochain. It seems to be a bit different. And I am involved in mutual credit. Since the year 2000, I've been looking after LetsLink, which has been doing its best to carry on the tradition of running Let's groups in this country. I've been supporting groups with a software that I can understand, which kind of bridges the old way that they used to do it on paper, because you can print out from it. And it's, compared with all this stuff, it's very mundane, but it shows the lists, it shows people can do the transactions, but you know, it's not, it's everyone's in its own little pocket, so it's quite tedious to host them because you have to set up separate ones, and I'm not sure that a lot of them really know how to do it. So it's like you're dealing with people who scarcely understand the project and are far less techy than me quite often. So I spent a lot of my time just trying to support people, and it's not worth it, you know. Anyway, that's me.
Thanks, Mary. David.
Me? Hi, I'm David from Mexico. I'm web developer since 15 years. My business has been successful, so I have now a lot of time, and I'm investing it in humanity's transcendence and these kinds of projects. I certainly don't see a nice future with the old system, so I'm part of a small community that is bringing organic food from the rural areas around the city to our town, and we are making this community of health. And all these projects came from precisely a local-based economy project experiment that lasted 1 year, and as a result they saw the need of putting together the people who produces and the people who consumes. And now, after having built this project of bringing the food to the city, now we are looking forth to implement another economy, local-based economy, but digital, in a digital platform. So we have been invited to learn more about Holochain, and it's almost the only one that it looks logical for our concept, because it's all cooperative in this path, in this community. So that's why I'm here. I'm the developer for that project.
That sounds brilliant. Yeah. Yeah, very impressive. We're also working on mutual credit here in the UK at the opencredit.network. We have some much simpler open source software if you wanted to start there. But we could get distracted by that. And I want to focus back in on the question, because I think we are here to discuss how can I use the existing Holochain apps to build a Holochain-based service. So unless anyone has a specific example, I wondered if we could discuss something Art Brock said to me once about how you could build a ride-hailing service on Holochain, right? So what is a ride-hailing service? So like, you know, like Uber, it's got drivers, it's got riders. So you've got people with smartphones, they've got geolocation, and somehow you need to match riders with drivers. Then they need to do the journey. They need to make the transaction in terms of sending some credit somewhere. And then afterwards, they probably want to review that service. How was the driver? How was the car, etc. So I'm imagining that one of the beauties of building services on Holochain is when developers have built specific micro Holochain apps, that it should be easy to plug them all together. So in that scenario, you would need some sort of identity system, like who is this person? Then you'd need to know, yeah, where are they, with some sort of geolocation thing. Then you need to do the matchmaking, which is very similar to the same thing that you would use in a mutual credit system, right? It's offers and wants. So you've got, I'm here and I want a ride, and I'm here and I'm offering a ride, and then you bring those together. And then the payment app, well, that's just a transactional payment. Similar, could be like the mutual credit app that we just saw. And then you need the ratings app afterwards, rate the customer, rate the driver. But to my mind, I can imagine how all of those separate apps could exist as building blocks. But what's not clear in my mind is how you would plug them together to make one bundled service, which you would present to a user.
Okay, can I go for? So It's a really lovely and nice question. Exactly the things that we are doing this day in community. You know, let me introduce you. Every week, if you are a programmer or developer, we are running the hackathon, and I invite all the developers, just come there and we are talking deeply and we are working on some application. So let me go fast to the answer. So how it's supposed to be working exactly right now when we are implementing application, I will go with the real example. We are trying to create as much as possible a generic modularity that you can reuse it. With the example, I'm gonna tell you how it's supposed to be working. For example, inside the mutual credit that you saw, you need a logic named triangulation. We call it triangulation. It means you need to bring people inside your community. What is your way? How you are going to evaluate them? They are supposed to send you a request, and 2 or 3 or X number of a community members supposed to vote for that guy. Yeah, and then that guy can easily join the community. The validation allowed to join. So we implemented this one as a zone. We are calling it as a zone. It means it is generic, it is a zone based, it is ready. If you are gonna have a one application, the things you need to have inside your DNA and zone, I'm not gonna open because it's a big topic. I assume that you have a basic knowledge of a zone. If you need me, please let me know that I can go a little bit. We have a logic named DNA. DNA means like a body. When you install application, all of us create a local source chain and then a public place as a DHT for sharing the data. We are calling all the logic DNA. What is the zone? Zone like a microservices submodule. They are in one DNA, but they are submodule. We implemented submodule named triangulation for inviting new guy to the community. The only thing you are supposed to do, create a new application, refer inside the GitHub or a Rust, Carrot or anything, implement that one, thanks, you already have it. It means your application, you're already working with inviting a new member named triangulation. So it means there are 2 ways that you can reuse. Somehow you want to call another application. Somehow you want to reuse the module inside your application. It is totally up to you. If it is enough, let me know. Otherwise, I can go deeper.
I liked it. I'm sure other people have got other questions though, so I might let somebody else speak.
As somebody asking me what is the event, please go, anybody please go to the forum.holochain.org. This is the virtual hackathon. Yeah.
So if no one else jumps in, I'd like to pick it up and say, so yeah, to use this mythical Holochain ride sharing service, right? Yeah, clearly we're going to have a membrane. So for the driver to come inside, they've got to kind of sign up. And certainly within mutual credit systems that we've been setting up, you know, we have the membership agreement. If you don't sign the membership agreement, you can't play, right? So that sets up your kind of governance, so the membrane, the barrier. And I think that would be the same for a driver and a rider, okay? They have to agree to the membership conditions. Once they're in, they're in. And then I think what your answer indicated that was once they're in there, then they're part of a shared DHT. Is that correct?
Let me give you a real example. It means we have enough time to go for the second layer, okay? I'm gonna go second layer. Right now, we are implementing a nice, actually, Holochain, Udemy in a Holochain version, okay? I'm gonna answer the question using the Holochain version of a Udemy, okay? How it's supposed to be working. I'm a student, I'm joining to the DHT as an application, yeah? You are coming, I am coming. Both of them, after triangulation or public up to the application, okay? We join to the environment named Holochain version of Udemy. We called it LEAP, learning path, okay? I'm gonna call it LEAP, okay? We join LEAP, I'm gonna be a student, you are gonna be teacher. Or vice versa. I'm gonna create a course, I'm a teacher, okay? I create a course and I wrap the data with the name ticket. It means you need to do a payment, okay? So you can pay the course to access the data. As a teacher, I can say, hey, I have a mutual credit in this community, and this community. In the London community, in Barcelona community, I'm based on Cologne. In a Cologne community, there are 3 mutual credit accounting there. I have an account. You can pay me inside that one, okay? Inside the LEAP, I can say, hey, if you pay 50 in this community mutual, if you pay 30 here, if you pay 20, you can access. I can create a list and put the address of 3 different applications. It means there is no need to bring mutual credit inside your application. Just refer them. So how we implemented a module we are going to implement, we are in the middle of implementation. Ticketing. It means generic, okay? You issue the ticket, you go to the mutual credit, totally different application. It's giving you the ticket. And then there is a guard delivering the ticket, and that ticket allow you to open the course for you, actually. It means how you are supposed to use a modularity. We implement ticket as a generic. We implemented application as a mutual credit. That's great. Go there inside different application, create your handle as a person that you can receive credit, you can receive money, but it is another application. But if you want to create application like Leap, you want to sell something, you want to sell the course, just reuse some modularity like ticketing, like triangulation, just connect them, it's gonna be working. I hope I covered the question. I can go deeper, but up to you.
That was good for me. I'll let somebody else ask.
Is there any question even about the community, about the tech, anything, please feel free if you have time.
So Hedaya, you talked about Barcelona or something like this. They are doing lots of stuff, I guess, and they have a advanced city administration who are really open. Do you know, is there anything around there about learning environments as you described a bit, and putting it together probably with a ride share or bus ticketing system that is issued from the city administration? So that would be the bigger picture I'm running, so that if people take courses about sustainability and things like this, they will get less expensive entry fees for the bus ticket, for swimming and things like this. So I know that's a huge thing, and I need to get more ideas where in the community could be parts of that already thought about or prototyped.
So you asked a big question. It means if you imagine the smart city that connecting a lot, I can right now easily tell you that you connect the big topic as a IoT or machinery payment or micro payment, and with a mutual credit app, which is a really big solution. But right now, we are mostly actively working on the human being application. So really soon, especially, I'm gonna be mostly working on it. And right now they are referring me to open the topic because it was my topic. We are going to open IoT world and machinery application inside the holochain. So right now, a specific section for the IoT and then the connection between a micro payment and a human being. Really soon, we are going to open the big topic for the good solution. But right now, maybe you need to wait for a couple of weeks. But come to the forum.holochain. Really soon, you will see the space for IoT and micropayment.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Where can I find list of app classifier? Actually, did you see the Holoscape? You know what is the Holoscape? Okay, let me tell, anybody knows Holoscape? Look, let me tell you briefly, what is the Holoscape? Till the time we are gonna go live, there is an intermediary solution for the Holoscape to see. It is like a App Store, okay? Something like that. So we list some application there, okay? You can install the Holoscape on your computer. So, and behind the scene, right now, there is a switch, it means it is a Holoscape, and it is a switch here, okay? The people are not connecting to each other peer-to-peer, they are going to the switch and then connect, because we need to read this log for a debugging. We are in a beta, you know, we need to see if everything is working or not. But by the way, in the Holoscape, when you install Holoscape, there are a bunch of applications. The mutual credit, we are waiting for 1 week or 10 days for a new version, because we know what's happening inside the core, because they are talking to us about the versioning, Holo organization actually. After a new version, we are going also to put the wiki, and I think still wiki is there, the mutual credit, okay? You just easily install them, connect with the application there, and if I install, we can see each other and use it. But please take into account, there is a switch, everybody goes to the switch and then goes to another guy. Just, it is for improvement, it is for logging and improving. And where do you find it? Please Google, because I would like to give you more time to ask questions. Please Google Holoscape Holochain Holoscape. Okay, next question. Antique, yeah, 100 Haprod. Yeah.
So, yeah, you were saying something, otherwise I can ask a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead. We have 2 minutes. You're quite loud, Ankit. Maybe sit back from the microphone a bit.
Okay. So, Hedayat, I just wanted to ask is the applications right now that are being built, I believe they are like still like, we are still in development stage. We're trying to bring the community of developers together and builders to build it. So over here in this group or in this seminar, I am not sure like what the dominant community is, but I think everyone is newcomers. So how do we engage them? How do we get them all to come and participate, contribute in their whatever value they can bring with their ideas, with their experience, with their skills, and start participating in building the community that we need desperately right now, from developer perspective, from builder and outreach and other perspective?
Good question. Forum, we have a topic, we opened the topic 100 Hap Rally. It means anybody has any idea coming to forum and create a thread, mostly in a same template, and he's telling the community that what is my idea, what is my state, I am in a proof of stake, or I'm done, I'm asking for team member or whatever, you know, and then we are supporting any idea and inviting them to virtual hackathon to help him to design, to help him to, one minute, to help any new application about design, about architect, and somehow we are even helping to test. Yesterday, there was an idea for one of our community member implementing email. We are going to test email. As much as we can, I think right now we have a problem of money. Apart from money, we are gonna support as much we can, mostly visionary, architect, and design.
That sounds good. It's a pretty good answer. Yeah, I think, you know, the general answer is just get involved in the community, right? Like there's a lot happening in the chat and on the Mattermost, in the forums. So yeah, it is one of the most kind of collaborative communities that I've seen. So
yes,
yeah, everyone's very welcoming.
I will see you there in the forum.
Hey, welcome back, everybody.
Thanks, Simon. I hope all those breakout rooms went well. It would be great to just get a little summary of some of them. Was there any riots in the mutual credit room? Anybody care to give us a brief update? Dive in.
I can give a little update. Yeah, okay, I can do that. So I think we managed to control the riots pretty well. There was no uprising. We were all pretty friendly about it. So I think we got to know about how this specific demo and application is working, and what are the blockers that don't allow it to be online, which has to do with underlying infrastructure and also testing. And from there, we kind of got more broad on, okay, so what kinds of games can we play to interact with these mutual credit currencies? Can we do the same thing, but for different communities? Can we interact with Holo REA systems, and what are the social games that we could play in the more broad sense that could interact with these kinds of mechanisms?
And anybody got any thoughts who was in group 8 on the hosting and earning HOT with Holoport? HOT being the kind of Holochain.
There wasn't any group. There wasn't a group 8.
Okay, interesting. But I'm wondering, Grace, if you can tell us anything about that, since you've had your Holoport plugged in.
Okay, cool. So there's a couple things. The first is, in our breakout room, we did talk about the hosts. So we imagined, the question was, what would I really use this for? And we talked about creating an app for my neighborhood during these difficult times, or my region. And a bunch of lonely people could say, listen, we're gonna have a potluck dinner, but don't let the government know that the 5 of us are actually meeting. We all live alone, but we wanna have a dinner party every Friday night, so we're not too lonely, but we don't want that data to escape. So we want to host it ourselves. And eventually, because of the privacy a bit, and we've been using this in our neighborhood, and we have all kinds of data about people's symptoms and how much they're helping each other and whatever, we might want to give some of that data to the government so that they can do good tracking about the disease, but it would be stripped of our names, and you'd have to say, yes, I'm willing to give that data. And so maybe everybody does, or maybe some people don't. And so that would be a privacy thing. And then the other great thing about that is my host in my house is the one hosting the data. And so the government can't demand to get that data from Amazon Web Services or Google or Facebook because it's in my box in my house. They could knock on the door. That would be unpleasant. And the other advantage, of course, of that would be I'd be earning these credits for hosting. The HoloFuel right now is not yet running, so it's still being tested. If you have this, we'll actually be running some tests on the HoloFuel. It hasn't been tested yet. It's been tested in the lab, and I think in a few weeks or months, I'm not sure exactly when, we'll be testing the HoloFuel, sort of dummy HoloFuel on here. And then once that has been proved, I mean, this is money, okay? We need to do wide scale tests before you just plug the damn thing in. It's been out 3 months now, okay? We're gonna test it, make sure it works with the dummy fuel before the actual hosting happens. So that's a few months down the line, but it is fun having them. There's an admin panel, and so it has a very cool light when it's plugged in. It has this huge LED, and it's azure. That's the color that it is. I can't even pronounce it. Look at that. Gary's got one too. It comes in a really beautiful box. I can't show you. It's holding my screen up. But yeah, so you can't earn HoloFuel yet. The hot tokens will be converted to HoloFuel. So okay, it is a truly, Reiner has one. It's truly a thing of beauty. I saw a hand up. Renata, did you have a hand up? Okay.
I really like the example of the kind of local, the local group that effectively, if I'm not mistaken, right, I mean, could be its own little private holochain network, right?
Yeah.
Because this thing is open source. Like I've heard other people question, oh, well, these holochain people, they want to sit in the middle and take a transaction fee off everybody, and that's like a money printing project. But to me, that's not entirely true, because yeah, just 3 of us could decide to set up our own app, right, and work in a completely private way that doesn't involve anybody else, using the advantages of holochain. And I specifically like the example that then, yeah, because we own the data, we become the gatekeepers that decide when it should be released to the relevant authorities, rather than our ISPs or our server providers.
Correct. And the way that the HoloFuel application is set up is I get to decide as the host what I want to do with this thing. So I might know that Simon is like a startup guy and I really like his startup. I'll be like, I host you for free. I don't charge you. So in my community, I don't have to charge HoloFuel. The only time that Holo takes it's only 1% transaction fee, by the way. So, you know, just compare that to any other hosting service you're using. The rest stays in the community. I don't have to charge HoloFuel. I can charge nothing. I can charge DMs, new mutual credit currency. I can create my own code to create my own way of charging. I don't need to use HoloFuel. And if I say that I'm giving away the hosting for free, Holo gets nothing.
I think it's important to understand that Holo is not intended as a way to sort of host every holochain app, but more as a bridge for those holochain apps that have business logic, that want to reach people that are not in the peer-to-peer decentralized distributed space. So basically your grandmothers, my grandmother, my mother, for them to just be able to go to a website, a URL that they're used to on their phone, on their computer, and to be able to participate in the peer-to-peer web without even realizing it. And that's the power of Holo. And Holochain is intended, of course, for us who are a bit more in the techie and the more cutting edge spaces to do our things and to slowly invite other people to join us in this space, but through a sort of, let's say, gentle process rather than, okay, you have to go on GitHub and work on the terminal, like for people to join.
Really good point. Thank you, Moritz. There's a good question there from David in the chat as well. Can HoloHost already be used to host a domain website directly and make the DNS redirections?
I think the answer is no. Yeah, no. I do want to add one more thing to your comment about, you know, Holochain. Holo is just taking this money in the middle. This is actually a breakthrough structure for open source, which is, when I first heard this is just, it's brilliant. Usually you have these open source projects that after they open as open source, they go around begging somebody to pay the money, and then they end up being sellouts. And we've all seen that, right? Linux Foundation or whatever, Red Hat. It always ends up like we're out there begging for money, and most of the time, the open source projects fail because there's no money. Holochain said something else. They said, we're going to own a company. We're going to own a company called the Holo Limited Corporation. That is going to be a hosting company. They're fully owned by the Open Source Foundation. So we own them, not they own us. And that's a really huge breakthrough. And I recommend to other open source organizations to look at that kind of structure because it's sustainable.
I like that. It makes perfect sense, especially having, contributed to and struggled with various other open source projects. I feel that directly, so I understand. We're going to have to wrap up in a couple of minutes. Does anybody have any closing thoughts that they want to share? Gary.
Well, I've just put mine in the chat. It's a question for the whole professionals. This box is very lonely. I've had it for a few months now. When is it going to be able to talk to its friends? When are we going to get anything coming up on that?
I can't give you anything more than what's been put out in the channels already. Sorry. But I know what you know.
But I would like to add something here. So then nice question. There is a delay in Holoport, or we are early? I think we are early. a project is supposed to change a lot. If there is something takes time from, I would like to say make sense. So Holoport is not delayed. Maybe we are really early about the project and we should be a little bit more patient. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and I would say that, you know, if you look at where Holochain is compared to other blockchain projects, I mean, you're looking at Ethereum's doing a huge refactoring because their initial architecture didn't work. And it's about at the same progress level as everybody else. So it's, you know.
I don't think you need to worry. You have a very patient and supportive community here. And it's also, yeah, I think it's worth pointing out that you're not only starting an open source project, you've also started a business and you've also started a hardware project at the same time, which you could say was perhaps slightly ambitious, but nonetheless is the level of ambition that we really need and we aspire to. So
within
yeah,
3 years.
Yeah, it's really, hardware is hard. Yeah, go ahead.
And it has grown out of a more than a decade-long research project, which is a much larger open source project called Scepter, which we haven't gotten into at all, which is fine. And Holochain is just the little project about data integrity. So there is a whole lot of history here and a whole lot of expertise and lived experience in the community currency space and in decentralized organizing and community activism and those kind of things. And so I think that's a good context from which this has grown and emerged.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to have to wrap it up there. So I would just like to say thanks to Grace and Hediat and Guillem for presenting, Maritz for chipping in there, Simon for helping host, and everybody else for joining. We will have another webinar this time next week at 4 o'clock. But Grace, do you just want to give a final plug for anybody who's absolutely new to Holochain, doesn't know anything and has made it this far through? Where should they go and where should people go who want to jump in and get more involved with code, etc., and learning?
I would say the same thing. We have a Holochain forum. It's really fantastic and active, and the community itself creates its own events. So you know, Hediat and Guillem and a bunch of other people just were like, we want a business course. So there was a 6-week business course, or was it 7 weeks? And it would have been good for any business person. Any business, it didn't matter if you had any Holochain or not. And that's recorded and up there. And just join the forum. There's meetups. So there's a London meetup once a month, and now it's online. So you don't have to be in London. So there's regular meetups, you can find them and join and ask newbie questions. It's a really wonderful community. You don't have to be a developer. If you are a developer, gosh, tell them about what's coming up, guys.
Yeah, so we have actually every week we have get together called Virtual Hackalong, in which we basically help each other building reusable modules so that every project can use them, and it's starting to gain momentum as an open source community. That's really great to witness.
I would just like to add a plug from being a non-developer and participating on the forum. What I've learned is that if you just get involved with the community supporting, you will find how you can give your value, provide your value. As a non-developer, you can learn the skills, you can bring your ideas, you can help others freshen up their ideas and just participate. Get involved. That is more important. Don't keep your box lonely. You get involved, and that is how you will feel like more connected.
And please bring your interest and all of your person along. You don't have to like come in and be sort of begging for information. It's more like, what are you interested in? And then we can have a conversation based on that.
Excellent. It sounds really good. Thanks once again. Everybody give us a wave. We always like to have a screenshot wave at this point in the seminar. Cool. Thanks everyone for being involved, and we'll see you again next week, same time, 4 p.m. And the video for this will be online tomorrow at open.coop. Cheers. Bye.